Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here because today we're taking a close look at the true, unsung heroes of the Indian economy. We constantly hear about massive multinational corporations, but the actual groundwork of economic development, the real inclusive growth, that happens at a completely different scale. Today, we're demystifying micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. We're going to break down exactly what they are, how they're governed, and why they're affectionately known as the engine of economic growth.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Just think about this staggering number for a second, 30%. That is the amount this specific sector contributes to the entire country's gross domestic product. That literally means nearly a third of all the economic value generated in the nation is coming directly from these micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. And actually, it gets even more impressive. They don't just supply the domestic market. They account for 40% of India's overall exports. This proves that MSMEs aren't just your local mom-and-pop shops. Collectively, they are a massive, globally competitive economic engine, pumping out a multitude of products and services for the entire world.
But for me, perhaps the most impactful number is this one, 50%. More than half of all these enterprises operate right in rural India. Why does this matter? Well, because they are the ultimate tool for equitable wealth distribution. They create massive employment opportunities at relatively low capital costs, they utilize local resources that would otherwise sit idle, and they single-handedly reduce regional imbalances across the country. It's just phenomenal.
So, to unpack how this massive engine operates, here is our roadmap. 1. Engines of economic growth. 2. Defining an MSME. 3. The MSME Act of 2006. 4. The government's role. 5. Institutions facilitating growth, and finally, 6. Driving entrepreneurship development.
Starting right off with Section 1, Engines of Economic Growth. Now think about those giant industrial factories we always read about. Who actually builds the thousands of small, necessary parts for those factories? Or who steps in to utilize local land and human resources in rural areas that might otherwise just, do nothing? Well, the answer is the MSME sector. You see, the government only has so much funding, and a lot of that pours into major infrastructure. So for true socioeconomic development, literally putting money in people's pockets and generating local jobs, the government relies heavily on MSMEs. They act as ancillary units. They're perfectly complementary to large industrial sectors, meaning the big guys absolutely depend on these smaller firms to supply raw materials and distribute their final output.
Moving to Section 2, Defining an MSME. Now, what's really interesting here is how we actually draw the line between a micro, a small, and a medium business.
Globally, definitions are all over the place. The World Bank, for instance, categorizes these businesses purely by their headcount, like 1 to 9 employees makes a microenterprise. But India takes a totally different, highly specific financial approach. Under Indian law, an MSME is defined by a composite criteria. It looks at how much money the business has invested in plant, machinery, or equipment, and it looks at its annual sales turnover.
Just think about this massive shift in how we define them. Under the old 2006 definition, the law only looked at investment, and it completely separated manufacturing from services with really low financial limits. The Union Finance Minister actually noted that these old low limits created a genuine fear among small business owners. They were terrified that if they expanded and grew too successful, they'd suddenly lose all their government benefits. So on July 1, 2020, the new definition came into effect. It beautifully resolved this issue by combining both investment and turnover, treating manufacturing and services equally, and drastically raising the financial limits. Now, a medium enterprise can have up to a 250 crore rupee turnover without losing its status. It's a system that finally encourages scaling rather than punishing it.
That brings us perfectly to Section 3, the MSMED Act of 2006. To understand where that old definition even came from, we need to look at the foundational instruction manual for this entire sector. Let's move along and see how this support builds over time. Way back in 1956, the Industrial Policy Resolution first recognized the importance of village and small industries. But as these businesses grew over the decades, they just became suffocated by a maze of confusing, overlapping laws. It wasn't until 2006 that the government enacted the MSMED Act to finally provide a single, comprehensive legal framework. This was followed rapidly by the creation of a dedicated ministry in 2007, and eventually, as we just saw, the modernized classifications in 2020. So what did the 2006 Act actually do? A whole lot, actually.
First, it was a total game changer because it legally combined manufacturing and services into one composite sector known as an enterprise. It also established a massive national board with 47 members to review policies. Crucially, it created strict legal provisions to protect these small guys from delayed payments. Let me tell you, that is an absolute lifeline for small cash flows. It also mandated skill development, laid out clear registration procedures, and even forced the government to create preference policies to buy goods directly from MSMEs.
Section 4. The government's role. With the law firmly in place, let's talk about the mechanics of how this engine is maintained day to day.
It's really important to clarify the jurisdiction here. Primarily, the actual promotion and development of MSMEs falls right on the shoulders of the state governments. But they aren't going at it alone. In 2007, the central government stepped up and merged two existing ministries to create the Unified Ministry of MSME. This central body provides the overarching framework, the necessary funding, and the big-picture initiatives to supplement what the states are doing on the ground, all to boost the sector's overall competitiveness.
A fantastic example of this central support is how they've totally transformed registration. The old process? It required filing these entrepreneurs' memorandums, parts 1 and 2, which was just a lengthy, bureaucratic headache. But recently, the government launched UDIAM registration. It is entirely paperless, based completely on self-declaration, and, best of all, it is 100% free. This doesn't just save entrepreneurs time. It allows the government to effortlessly collect real-time, accurate data so they can design even better policies.
Section 5. Institutions facilitating growth. Because, let's be real, a ministry sitting in the capital cannot do it all alone. They need specialized mechanics out in the field.
So you might be wondering, when a rural artisan or a small tech startup needs a loan, or maybe technical training, or just help finding buyers, who exactly supports them on the ground?
Well, the ministry operates through a fascinating alphabet soup of statutory bodies. But these aren't just boring bureaucracies. They are highly specialized units. You've got KVIC, the Khadi and Village Industries Commission, which has been preserving national heritage and rural employment since 1956. You have the NSIC handling integrated marketing and finance. There's the MGIRI, which was actually redesigned by IIT Delhi, focusing purely on rural industrialization. And bodies like NIMSME are completely dedicated to training and skill development. Basically, they keep the rural, technical, and financial parts of this economic engine well-oiled.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 6, Driving Entrepreneurship Development. Because all of these policies, definitions, and institutions, they all serve one fundamental purpose: the human element.
So, the crucial point here is the incredible ripple effect this creates. Step 1, MSMEs provide the very first platform for budding innovators to test their ideas. Step 2, by doing this, they nurture a wildly supportive entrepreneurial culture locally. And step 3, they empower local people, promote self-sufficiency, and act as those vital ancillary units supplying big industries, essentially integrating the whole economy.
I love how the source material beautifully sums this up. Money begets money. Similarly, an entrepreneur encourages others to become an entrepreneur. Innovation and entrepreneurship, they go hand in hand. When one small business succeeds in a village or a city, it doesn't just create jobs, it inspires the next generation of founders, creating this incredible, unstoppable cycle of socioeconomic growth.
We've explored the massive scope of MSMEs, how they're defined, the legal protections of the MSMED Act, and the vast institutional network designed to support them. They truly are the engine of economic growth. The ecosystem is there, the barriers to entry have been lowered, and the support systems are incredibly active. So now that this powerful engine has been demystified for you, what part will you build? Thank you so much for learning with us today on this explainer. Keep exploring, keep innovating, and I'll see you next time.